I'm pretty sure we've never done this list. Old plugins that became a classic. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, welcome back to MixBus TV. Hope you're having a great day. Before we start, please check the info box down below for my mixing courses on Pro Mix Academy, free plugin special discounts and offers. And of course, if you really want to learn how to mix and master professionally, click the join button down here, become a MixBus TV member. Access the already big and always growing library of full mixing courses start to finish, mastering courses on so many different genres and a lot more. And keep an eye out for the new, very popular format, the live mixing classes. Those are one-offs. And if the videos are helping you, please consider using the super thanks and support the channel. Let's get to the list. I think this is gonna be interesting. Old plugins that have been around forever and somehow became a classic. But I want you guys to put in the comments down below what are the old plugins that you're still using. And this list is gonna be partial to a couple of brands because, well, they've been around forever. But without further ado, let's get started. And I had to start this list with two of the oldest yet almost omnipresent in so many projects still to this days plugins, which are RVox and RComp. The Renaissance collection was one of the most popular and still is to this day from Waves. The RVox became so freaking popular at the beginning of the digital era for its simplicity and how good it was sounding. With only 3 controllers and everything happening under the hood, you really didn't even need to know how to use a compressor. You just pull a threshold down and compensate for the gain, and your vocals was better than before. And there's a lot of engineers out there that still use RVox on a daily basis. Whether or not it's because they like the sound or they still didn't learn how to use the other controls on a compressor, that is to be decided. But the point is, RVox is on so many projects, and I'm talking professional projects. But jokes aside, I myself use RVox sometimes. You know why? Because he made so many popular projects, commercial, top 10s, that it kind of became a classic.
I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone, oh no. Don't need to be loved by you. Fire in my lungs can bite the devil on my tongue, oh no. Don't need to be loved by you. See my lips on her mouth, everybody's talking now, baby. Ooh.
With this combination of compression and limiting taken from the R compressor, it has an immediate sound. The R compressor is just as classic as the RVox, but just with more controls. And also, believe it or not, this was the very first non-official emulation of hardware compressors, 2 vocal classics, the LA2A and the 1176. That's what the electro and opto controls are. The opto would simulate the LA2A and the electro would simulate the 1176.
I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone, oh no. Don't need to be loved by you. Fire in my lungs can bite the devil on my tongue, oh no. Don't need to be loved by you. See my lips on her mouth, everybody's talking now, baby. Ooh, you know it's true.
And they indeed sound great, and they are so immediate and so simple to use. So RComp and RVox are our first old plugins that became a classic. Let's go to the next one. If you're not on Pro Tools, you cannot get this one, but Deverb is arguably the reverb plugin that made more top 10 than any other reverb up until now, at least, just simply because it has been around forever. This is included in Pro Tools since the dawn of DAWs. And back then, there weren't that many choices for plugins in general or reverb plugins. But funny enough, the reason because Deverb to this day keep making top 10s, it's because what happens in studios or artists' home studios when they record vocals, they just ask the engineer, hey, give me a little bit of reverb in my headphones. And any engineers that uses Pro Tools used to grab Deverb because it's simple, everybody knows it, and every other studio had it. So when they were transferring the session to the mixing studio, they could open it, see the settings, and then decide to use that one or replace it with a better one. But most important, Deverb made so many final edits and records simply because the artists were used to the demo and the reverb they were hearing in the demo. And now it happens all the time in the music world. When there's a song that makes #1 or top 10, And then the engineer is asked, oh, what reverb did you use on that? Well, I used reverb, and little by little it became a classic reverb. And of course this reverb is not high-end, doesn't have such great tails, but is versatile enough, and I myself use it all the time.
I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. Fire in my lungs can bite the devil on my tongue. Oh no, don't need to be loved by you. See my lips on her mouth, everybody's talking now, baby. Ooh, you know it's true that I was born to run, I don't belong to anyone. Oh no, I don't need to be loved by you.
I feel like most of the audience never even heard of this one. Again, one of the old plugins included with Pro Tools since forever. It was the first unofficial distressor emulation, and it was by the old DigiDesign, and it's called Smack. It came with all the controls that you find on the distressor, just somewhat masked. It had an HPF filter, it has a sidechain, it has odd and even harmonics or both, and it came with normal, warm, and opto mode, which grays out attack and release and ratio. And for the ratio, it had the infamous Smack setting, which would basically be the nuke on the distressor. Again, I still enjoy it. I look at it one of those lo-fi, really old piece of gear that you keep because, you know, they're greedy and dirty. Eventide Ultra Channel, you can tell by the GUI. Eventide has been around forever, so of course it made the list. This was one of the first super comprehensive channel strip, and I want to say it still is. You have gate compressor, actually two compressors. You have the great omnipressor in it. You have a parametric EQ, 5 bands. You have a transformer output. But what makes this plugin even more a classic sound is the famous Eventide micro pitch shift.
It's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you. Tell me all the things you wanna do. It's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you. Tell me all the things you wanna do.
And you also had the stereo delays.
It's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you. Tell me all the things you wanna do.
Again, another classic plugin with a classic sound, classic effects, which I think if Eventide remade the GUI, it would still get named among the top modern channel strip. I won't stay on this one that much because it's the same reason as to why Diver became a classic effects used on so many records. It's Mod Delay 3 against stock Pro Tools. Funny story, there was a big artist that I really liked the mix of like years ago, and I particularly liked the delays on her vocals, and I happen to know the mix engineer who mixed that record, but I was trying to recreate that delay myself, so I just started opening delays with a lot of function, a lot of color or filtering or weird stuff, a lot of controls that I thought maybe is this one, maybe is that one, and then I gave up. And I asked him, what did you use on that vocals? And he was like, oh, that is just mod delay, stock. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I myself still use mod delay for the same reasons, because it's simple, I know it like the palm of my hand. It's got cool basic functions and it's very precise if you wanna do like fake stereo.
It's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you. Tell me all the things you wanna do.
If you wanna do something like this.
It's you, it's all for you. Everything I do, tell you all the time. Heaven is a place on earth with you.
Right, but also normal regular delays. Mod delay, you've seen me using this and featuring this plugin on several plugin lists, and again is old as the digital and it would definitely need a new GUI, a bigger one for sure, but it's still used by many engineers. It is a classic plugin. I don't know if it has a classic sound because it's the LinNB, linear multiband compressor by Waves, so it's linear. It doesn't really have a sound as in coloration, but it does have a sound. You know what I'm talking about if you use that. And I have this specific trick that I use if I had to use it on the 2-bus. Like for example, this is one of the plugins that I grabbed the few times that I didn't have my hardware and I had to mix completely in the box. And it makes a pretty good compressor for the 2-bus. And I'm not a fan of multiband compressor on the 2-bus. And I shared this preset that I made for myself. It's called Start LinNB. You can see it. You can copy the settings if you want. And what I do on the 2-bus with this preset, of course you can adjust. This is just a starting point. I simply pull down the master threshold.
Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah, pull back again. Pump the right medicine. Pick up the veterans. You showing up when I'm showing up that meat like Ed Gein. I'm that mean. That beats I beat the dead with the dead sheep, cold feet like cop killers, me and police. An MC rockin' tree, MMC 365 days. My mind sideways.
And just gel things very nicely, okay? Really old plugin that is still used all the time. I said that this list would have been partial to some brands simply because they've been around forever. And here's another old Waves plugin. By the way, there's gonna be Black Friday deals. I'll put the links in the info box down below. This is a really good time to grab these old plugins. Mondo Mod, I still use it, I wanna say, pretty much every mix on something, an effect, a return of a delay, a return of a reverb, or ear candy, or some synths. I have Tube Modulator, which also kind of does something similar, but again, it's different. And I see Mondo Mod as being a classic sound, at least for me. It would definitely benefit of a new GUI because it's this freaking tiny and we can barely see it, but I still use it all the time. This is a great 3D positioning plugin and 3D panning. And not just by itself, but in combination with other effects, like I said, delays and reverbs. I do these tricks all the time and it sounds great. Very cool. I just love this plugin and I keep using it. Again, for me, is one of the classics. Let's get to the next one. Sonox Inflator, probably the first of its kind. And yeah, a lot of people say, oh, you can replicate it with a wave shaper and everything, blah, 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 blah. Still, this plugin is present in so many production, and it doesn't even matter if you could replicate it, could not replicate it. Maybe you can replicate one settings. Who wants to sit there and try to replicate it, to spend 2 hours to replicate it? It's available, it's here. Again, on Black Fridays, it goes down to like 70% off. And again, one of those plugins that is super simple to use. You have the effect, the intensity, and the curve, input and output, that's it. I mean, yes, you have a couple of buttons like clip, zero, and bend split, but for the most part, everything happens under the hood. This just gives you more punch and more grit.
At the top of your dome like artichokes, these artists choke. Can't stand this kind of smoke. Adios. Que pasa, nasa, vámonos. Ya toca lado, I know y'all grinding dominoes. Y'all need to stop it and go stocking or go pop the flow. Rapido, I'm a capo, do tutti capi. You are now. Hey yo, face, let's put the heat on. These weak mouths with them cheap rhymes. Beat on these peons, still I see him holding up peace.
Again, so simple, instant result, classic sound, Oxford Inflator. Sansamp PSA1, one of the very, very first emulation, and actually I had, my bass player had the hardware of this exact unit, which was a classic sound for bass and many other things, actually drums and vocals in those years, and still is. And for being this old, it's quite impressive how close it is. And many engineers, again, started using it for vocals, for drums, to crush snares, mono drum buses, and again, it became a classic on its own. It doesn't matter how close to the hardware it is. I mean, listen to this low growl, because the beautiful thing about the PSA-1 was how versatile it was. It is. See it as a multi-band distortion unit, right? Different types of distortion, different types of saturation, saturating more one frequency range than another. And it sounds great. It can go from like super subtle, almost tube-like, like legit tube-like distortion and saturation, just the low end, to full-blown metal distortion. I'm still impressed, and I kind of mad at myself for not using it lately. And it's great on drums and vocals as well. Just one thing to keep in mind: watch it when you use it in parallel, because these kind of distortions, they kind of shift the phase a lot, and when you go in parallel, especially in the low end elements, it can cause phase problems and just eat up your entire low end. So pay attention if you use it on parallel. AK Multimedia also has been around forever, and unforgettable yellow series, where we had the multiband compressor, the classic EQ, and the, at this point, legendary classic clipper, which you saw me using all the time on single tracks, on groups. It's a great clipper, and it has a sound that we are used to. We are used on how it works, how it reacts, and it makes pretty much every mix. Super simple. You got a gain, you got an output, and a slope, which I usually tend to keep on hard. It has a nice warm sound. I think a lot of people started loving it because, differently from all the other clippers that were becoming really harsh and digital, this doesn't really do it. Even if it sounds crushed and too much, it never really sounds harsh. Like, look, I'm clipping an excess of 4 dB on an entire drum kit, and it kind of sounds fuzzy and warm. This is a no-brainer plugin. Is one of those plugins that when you have a high track count mix and you need a bunch of clippers, you start opening this one because you know it sounds great, you know it's easy to use, and you know it's low on CPU. I saved the best for last. The best because not only I still use this plugin, but I use it on so many sources. I use it on sources that probably you're not supposed to use it. Waves Max Bass. I find myself using this on vocals when they're too thin. They were recorded too thin. I get sent vocals that were like too much HPF on them, or just shitty ass mics. Electric guitars to add body to them again when they used some VST and they sent me the tracks without DI and they're just thin and lifeless. This is a plugin that I really find using all the time. I prefer this to R-Bass, which is very similar, same algorithm, just different controls, because I have more control here on the slope. Let's play this drum. How extended you want this generated low frequency higher harmonics. You have the level, you can only audition the max bass, the original bass. You have control over the original bass level. And you have a response and a ratio, this dynamic part. A lot of people just leave it default, which is okay for most situations, but you can change it. Because of course the new generated higher, still low, but higher harmonics are generated from the source material. So the dynamic section decides how much, right? And it follows the envelope and the original material. That's also why it sounds so great. And again, I wish they would update the GUI because it's tiny and it looks super old, but I still use this plugin so often. And I think this is it for this video. Let me know in the comments down below which are your old but still gold plugins that you use. Keep an eye out for the next videos. We're gonna do my favorite reverbs, delay, modulation, special effects, and so on. If you like the video, please don't forget to leave a like, join the channel to access the exclusive content. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe, see you next time.